Hey, and welcome back to the channel. Today, if you didn't read the title of the video, today I'm going to talk a little bit about self-awareness and, well, the thin line between self-awareness and self-hatred. And today's drawing is going to be Doduo. It's the 84th Pokemon from the first generation of Pokemon. Again, I'm still continuing on my journey of the drawing the first generation Pokemon. I'm gonna be going all the way up to Mew, the 151. So, like I said in my previous video, you're gonna see a lot of Pokemon right now, only because I'm doing this challenge where I'm drawing one Pokemon per day and I'm painting it or coloring it. And yeah, I'm actually switching between painting and like color pencils for the coloring portion of it. So in this one, I believe I used paint. But yeah. So so what I mean by the whole thin line between self-awareness and self-hatred, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll kind of dive a little deeper with it. Um, Self-awareness itself is a great thing to have. It's something that I think more people should have, but unfortunately, a lot of people lack. And of course, this isn't to bash anybody for lacking self-awareness. But unfortunately, a lot of people do. A lot of people just don't know because they're so caught up in their own head and their own mind that they aren't comprehending what is happening in their own lives. And I did this for a long time. Like the first time I think I remember being actually self-aware is in my mid to late 20s. So maybe 24, 25 is when I was. And yeah, it's when I started really, I had an epiphany and I just started realizing what I was doing. And I became more aware of who I was as a person and what I was doing and how I affected other people. So yeah, so self-awareness is something that is a great thing to have, but it can start getting self-deprecating. And if you don't know what self-deprecation is when you're starting to, for lack of a better term, you start to shit on yourself. So, you start saying you're not good enough. You start thinking that you're a bad person, and you start the qualities that you're showing and your personalities and all that. You start defining who you are as a person, and it gets to a point, and this is why I'm making this video, is because I struggled with this, especially when I first became really aware of what I was doing and how I was affecting other people. I started, it was a hard thing for me to separate the two, to be like, okay, I need to make sure that I am calling myself out on my actions and that I'm responsible for my actions and that I am making sure that I am trying to better myself. But it would get into the point where, I started thinking that I was a bad person and that I was not good enough, or that, I just shouldn't. I started to get to a point where trying to think of how to put it. Well, I didn't think I deserved anything good. It was getting to that point. It was getting to the point where, it's not a healthy mindset to have. And I'm not sure if anybody else struggles with this. I'm pretty sure somebody does. I'm not a unique in that, in the point where I'm the only one that thinks about it. I know that. I just wonder. I wonder how many people get to that point where they do become self-aware and they are trying to be a better person, but then they start to self-deprecate. They start to think that they're a bad person and that they're not a good person because they're seeing that their actions are are not in aligned with a good mindset or what they deem to be a good mindset. Because really, I could go to a whole tangent about kind of what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. Because it's all subjective. It's all based on who you're talking to. And I guess I'll kind of go into a mini rant about really quick, kind of right and wrong. What I mean by it's very subjective is that, for example, if somebody is trying to help a homeless person, for the most part, people think that that is good. And people are like, oh, that's great. You're helping somebody less fortunate and you're trying to get them to a point where maybe they're able to take care of themselves or whatever you're trying to do. Maybe you just give them money. You're giving them a fish instead of teaching them how to fish, which is fine. We all do it, and I understand that part of it. However, most people, like I said, will agree that that is, for the most part, a good thing. But there are other people that think that instead of giving them, a fish, the metaphor that I was using earlier, instead of giving them a fish, why don't you teach them how to fish? Why don't you teach them how to actually get a job and do all that? Which for that, it takes more time, it actually is harder to do, but in the long run, it is more beneficial. And also, there are people that, they will, if they're helping somebody out there, and this is one thing where this is kind of the virtue signaling of the generosity. But there are people that will give somebody something, but then they'll like record it or they'll tell other people about it. And to me, that's getting to a point where, yeah, that's virtue signaling when it comes to charity, because when you do something for somebody, you, at least I would think that you wouldn't want to put that person on blast, or even if you do want to put them on quote unquote blast or whatever, it's just not something that I think is beneficial for anybody. And yeah, but that's kind of what my mini rant when it comes to that. Anyways, back to the self-awareness and self-hatred thing. So I got to a point in my life at one point, and I still struggle with this now. I shouldn't say I got over this, because I still battle with this every day. Making sure that I'm self-aware, that I'm being accountable for my actions, but then making sure that I'm not getting to a point where I'm self-deprecating, and where I'm starting to talk bad about myself, starting to feel like I'm worthless, or that I'm a bad person or whatever. Because it's not true. It's nobody is worthless. Nobody is. I shouldn't say nobody is a bad person, but for the most part, I like to think that most people are good people, or if they're not good, they're just neutral. Don't get me wrong, there are people that do more bad than good in this world, and I don't know if it's just that they lack self-awareness, or that they just don't care, or maybe it's a combination of the two. But yeah, so sometimes it does seem like some people are quote unquote bad people. But then again, it goes back to this, so the subjective part of it. Like, who are we to say that people are bad or people are good? And then here's another dilemma that I'm coming up with as I'm talking, is that maybe it is up to us as a society to say who is bad and who is good, and all that, and for us to judge. And some people, they are religious and they do believe Jesus and God and all that. For me personally, and some people may click off this video when I say this, or if you haven't watched any of my other videos, but I've been an atheist for a long time. So me personally, I don't believe in like a higher power and the devil and Jesus and all that. I don't believe in all that, you know. But at the same time, I respect people's beliefs, and I don't think I should try to shit on somebody who does believe in God or whatever. Because my thing is, as long as you're using religion for quote unquote good purposes, so as long as you're not trying to hurt anybody and you're not using it to justify, war and killing and all that, and trying to make it seem like you have some type of, you know, altruistic or some type of better morale than other people because you believe in God. As long as you're not doing that part and you're trying to throw it in other people's faces, I think you should be able to do and pretty much say what you want, as long as you're within reason, Hopefully, hopefully most people, like I said, are reasonable, but there are some people that are not as reasonable, and it's unfortunate. And for those people, we got to make sure that we are making sure to call them out and making sure that we are. Fortunately, we got to kill them with kindness, because trying to trying to match people's like quote unquote petty nowadays, it's a thing, it's a thing to want revenge. It's a thing to, when they go low, we go lower. It's like, yeah, no, it's, because we all did that. Like, think about it this way, and this is the way I try to think about everything in life. Is that I try to treat people how I want to be treated. So if I were to make a mistake, if I were to say something, if I were to do something, I wouldn't want people to try to make it seem like I'm the worst person in the world for making that mistake or whatever. Granted, most of my mistakes hopefully aren't that bad, but there are some bad ones. I'll be the first one to admit some of my mistakes are pretty bad. However, I would think that I have the intelligence or I have the self awareness, back to that again, to find out that, okay, this isn't right, or this isn't, it doesn't align with what my actual values are and my morale is. So let me go ahead and switch this up. Let me go ahead and make sure that I am trying to realign myself with what I'm actually wanting to be like. And quick kind of sidetrack of that conversation. So actually, here in this baiting, I'm terrible for some reason at like highlights. And it's something I really need to work on. Highlights and shading. Like, I don't know if the hue that I'm using is just too light or whatever it is. But yeah, so for some reason, whenever I'm painting, I kind of suck at it, and which is normal. I'm not saying that, I expect to be Pablo Picasso or anything like that, or Michelangelo, whatever you want to use as your reference for, great art. But yeah, I need to work on that. So, anyways, off that sidetrack. Back to the self-awareness. Yeah, so something that I think more people need to be is self-aware. And I'm not sure even how self-awareness comes about. I'm not sure if it's like because for me, the way that I'm thinking about it right now is that I think self-awareness comes with experience, and having a certain level of empathy for others. Because there are people that just don't have any empathy, unfortunately. They don't care about others. They only care about themselves, and they, not to say caring for yourself is a bad thing, but there's a certain point where you get really selfish, and it's okay to be selfish to a certain point. To say, life is all about balance with everything, And that's what I'm coming to realize. It's okay to eat ice cream every once in a while, but you can't eat ice cream every single day now. It's okay to, maybe drink a little alcohol here and there, but if you overconsume alcohol, it's terrible for you. And, that goes for a lot of things. There are some things that you do that are just bad all around. For instance, like smoking. Smoking is just bad all around. No matter if you smoke, marijuana or if you smoke cigarettes or whatever. Some people think, vaping is more healthy and all that. And don't get me wrong, vaping is more healthy in terms of smoking a cigarette, maybe. But, you know, new research is coming out that vaping may be worse for you than smoking. So, that's just all up in the air. But even like something like marijuana, like THC or whatever. Like if you're smoking THC or marijuana, like in the short term, maybe it's not as bad for you, but there are effects to it. So like you still get that smoke inhalation into your lungs. You're still maybe you're not getting tar into your lungs, but you're still getting the substance in your lungs, and it's messing up your brain, and it's a chemical going into your brain and your body, and it's not something that's just harmless. It's never gonna affect you because it is gonna affect you. But yeah, so anyways, off of that little tangent, when it comes to you know things that are good and bad for you. So I'm coming to the end of this video. About 16 minutes in now. It's about a 20-minute uh, painting that I'm doing here. Just finishing up the highlights and everything. And like I said, it's terrible. My highlights. I think I gotta make it more subtle. I just gotta make sure the darker the value of it. Make sure that it's more subtle than what it is right now. 'Cause I'm looking at the picture right now, and as you are on the left side, that I'm as my reference. And yeah, it looks like I'm going a little too light when it comes to the actual shading, highlighting, and all that. Yeah, so just try to be more self-aware. That's my whole message here. Try to be more self-aware. Try to make sure that try not to get into that territory of self-hatred, or if you do get into that territory of self-hatred, make sure to pull yourself back and not be so harsh on yourself. It's okay to make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and I think most people innately know that it's okay to make mistakes. It's just that, unfortunately, society, people, they tend to think that nobody makes mistakes, that nobody needs to, that no, if you make a mistake, especially publicly, don't make a mistake publicly because you messed up real bad if you make a mistake publicly, whether you lie or maybe you hurt somebody intentionally or unintentionally, because that happens too, where maybe you hurt somebody's feelings unintentionally, and you're not trying to be a bad individual. You're just, you're trying to, you with the information that you have, you are giving the best answer that you have to an individual, or your best opinion of something, and it happens a lot where people will take your opinion and they'll make it seem like you can't change your mind in the future. Like their opinions now that with these videos that I'm making now, and even looking back at some of my older videos, like there are some opinions that I still hold, but then there are other opinions that I'm like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best take. maybe I need to reassess some of my opinions, and I'm constantly doing it every day. It doesn't just happen overnight. It happens over more experience and experience in life, and getting more information from life and books, and even like social media. Just getting more information is overall, I think, a net positive. But there is sometimes information overload where you get too much information and you start, just agreeing with whatever you're reading. And I'm hoping that most people have the critical wherewithal and critical mindset to actually be able to question what it is they're reading, consuming, whether that be listening, watching, whatever. That you have your own opinions, and that you're able to hopefully be able to change your mind about stuff. Because I think that having curiosity is such an underrated skill, and I guess I'll maybe talk about that later. Maybe if maybe that'll be a different video, but yeah. So curiosity is definitely a skill, and just be curious when it comes to how you're treating people and how people treat you. You know, making sure that you are being self-aware. But yeah, so coming to the end of this video, it's about 10 seconds left here, and other than that, I'll see you on the next video, and y'all have a wonderful day.